Here's a true story of God's goodness and grace to my family. Our daughter Emily ruptured her ACL in September 2020. That's the footballer injury, though hers was lacrosse. It was devastating all round. One glimmer of hope was her local hospital had a top ACL specialist surgeon. The dark spots on the horizon were COVID, lockdown, and as we stared into that abyss of a ruptured ACL, no good date for an operation that wouldn't adversely affect her studies or her first job if it was all delayed by another year. The post-operative 3 months in a non-weight-bearing knee brace doesn't work with practical training, vet surgery, farm animals, equine medicine. Now, I know I go on about it, but prayer really makes a difference. The Swiss theologian Karl Barth wrote these words: "Let us approach the subject of prayer from the given fact that God answers. He is not deaf, He listens. More than that, He acts. He does not act in the same way whether we pray or not. Prayer exerts an influence upon God's action, even upon His existence. This is what the word answer means." So we prayed. We prayed for healing. We prayed for a good date. And when Emily's consultant had an exploratory look in March this year, 6 months after the injury, it was much worse than feared. A ruptured ACL and a meniscus almost torn off the bone. Even more, as a family, we realised that the forthcoming operation could never be at a good time. But we prayed. We prayed that God would heal Emily marvellously and that the best possible day for the operation would be offered. The hospital declared Friday the 2nd of July. Now, about that date, God had indeed answered our prayer for a most favourable time. The 3-month knee brace recovery would still impact her studies, but for all sorts of reasons, nowhere near as bad as we had feared. The offered date was indeed a reasonably good date, a best case scenario to our prayer about timing. We then continued to pray for full healing, that the consultant would be delighted at the lack of necessary surgery. 3 days before, as Emily took the obligatory hospital COVID test, we gathered as a family and prayed for a miracle of healing. Remember Karl Barth's words? God is not deaf, He listens. More than that, He acts. God listened, God acted. The consultant found the meniscus was stable, that's his word, and needing no repair. The ruptured ACL was successfully replaced with a graft. The result? Emily needs to be on crutches for just 2 weeks. She's already gently weight-bearing and will walk fully in a few weeks. Her final year rotation says September that can go ahead as planned. God's goodness, God's grace, God is active today. I'd love you to share your story of God at work in your life, to encourage me and to encourage others. And if you want to know more about this wonderful God of love, then you be in touch.